Folks, hello and welcome to the Naren Agarwal show. Today is an episode that's truly international, not because our guest is international, but also we're going to be talking about international relations and international stuff. If you're interested in international politics, in what's going around the world affairs, this is the episode for you. I have with me somebody with an international relations degree, Rafael Carranza, a dear friend, but also an expert on security and economic matters in North America and the European region. Rafael has been part of several programs in different universities across the world, such as Hanover College in the America, Frei Universität of Berlin, National University of Mexico, and UNIVA University. He holds a master's degree in global politics and Transpacific studies. As for his work experience, Rafael has worked for the private and public sector, focusing on international education. He speaks 4 languages. He's currently working at the Global Affairs in Canadian Embassy in Mexico City, which is the capital of Mexico. He was recently awarded the Jacques Delors Award by the European Union for fostering research on European Union matters. On a side note, he's been practicing the martial art of Hapkido since 13 years, is a second-degree black belt holder and a senior instructor in Hapkido, one of the youngest senior instructors for Hapkido Alliance in the world. Welcoming my dear friend, Rafael Carranza. Rafa, what are you doing, bro?
Thank you so much, Naren. Hello to everyone. Once again, I'm so grateful to talk to you once again. It's a true honor to be here in your show, and let's enjoy it a little bit.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for doing this a little later for you tonight because of the time difference. We're almost flipped, right? It's night here, morning there, night here. That kind of a situation. Thanks for recording this late night for me, man.
As always, my pleasure for you, bro.
Bro, first off, what 4 languages do you speak?
I speak, well, my mother tongue is Spanish, English, German. Actually, for hobby, I teach German and French, of course. Yeah, and French.
¿Cómo estaba?
Yeah, but yeah, that's more my 4 languages that I speak. French, I have been studying more recently, of course, because of my job. But yeah, fluently, I will say that really fluently, I will say, of course, Spanish, German, and English.
Wow. That's impressive, man. You're doing a lot of things, like, with the languages, with the hobby teaching, you got your martial art things, you got your international relations thing. Brother, so you're originally, for the viewers, you're originally from Guadalajara, which is a big city in Mexico, right?
Exactly.
Close to where tequila is manufactured?
Exactly. So tequila is just a little town 1 hour from Guadalajara, but Guadalajara is part of the state of Jalisco. And Jalisco is the largest producer of tequila worldwide. So yeah, pretty much all of you guys that you know from Mexico, mariachi, tequila, pretty much everything comes from Jalisco. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that mariachi band we saw at the church near your home when I was visiting, like about 5 years ago when I was visiting?
5 years ago. So yeah, that next year, once I go to India, will be 6 years. Since the last time we saw each other. Yeah.
That's crazy. So Rafael and we met at college and we got really good friends. We had a lot of things in common, their approach and the view of life. And of course, he's doing great. And what he's doing right now, I am not into international relations, etc. So I get to learn a lot from him. But this is like kind of the first time we're truly talking on air about international relations, and I'm excited about this and what he's done with his journey and career, where he's positioned himself as an expert, receiving awards from the European Union. So, bro, currently you're living in the capital city of Mexico, right?
Yeah, I moved like 3 months ago. Just 3 months ago, I was working for the Canadian consulate in Guadalajara, but they transferred me to here to the embassy, specifically for the immigration section. Back then I was a trade commissioner and I'm an immigration agent. But yeah.
Working with the Canadian embassy and stuff, man. So what's that transition been to come to the busiest and the capital city of Mexico and work for one of the biggest, probably, embassies of Canada?
Yeah, exactly. I think just a little bit behind from the American embassy, because the relationship between Mexico and the US, just not only economically, rather political and migration, of course. But yeah, I think the Canadian embassy is the largest embassy or network that it's outside Canada. So it has been a journey for me, a little bit sometimes overwhelming. I don't have to lie. It's a 30 million city. 30 million people live here. I think it's one of the top 10 largest, biggest cities all around the world. Of the Americas, it has to be like a top 2, top 5. I think it's largest, biggest than New York City. So, or LA probably. I think, yeah, probably. It has to be a little bit behind from Sao Paulo in Brazil. So it's a monster here. It's everything you can dream about it. Everything is here. Everything pretty much is here. People from Korea, people from India, people from everywhere in the world. But yeah, it's a monster. That's the impression that I have from this city.
Mexico. Nice, Mexico. Man. I visited Mexico City like 5 years ago, I think, and I went to the main square there, and I don't think I've seen a larger flag in my life. That was the biggest flag I've ever seen in my life. It was just there in the wind, and we sat at a restaurant with a friend of mine there, and from the rooftop we could see the flag, and I've never seen a bigger piece of flag in my life. That's a huge flag in the center of the city.
Last week, actually, I went to just a little bit outside the city, and you can pretty much see the flag. It's enormous. Yeah, it's so big, the flag. And every time I go to the Zócalo, that big square is actually, that square represents where Tenochtitlan, which basically, that's a long time ago, where the Mexicas, which were like the indigenous people back from, I will say, yeah, a long time ago, their god told them that if they saw an eagle eating a snake, and he was standing in front of a cactus, that was the place of founding Tenochtitlan. So pretty much that's the place where Mexico was born before it was called Mexico.
Wait,
so, yeah,
but you have that symbol on your flag too, the eagle.
Exactly. Snake. Yeah, exactly. That's our national symbol. Yeah.
Okay, dude, I never knew that. That's a nice connection of a dot in my mind right now.
Yeah, it's that's why it's really in front of the square or Zócalo. It's National Palace, the biggest cathedral in Mexico is in front. So pretty much all politics, all religious matters happens in that center. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And what a foresight, or whatever, like epiphany by that leader who said this would be the center of Mexico until today, till like the 21st century.
Yeah, it has been
the center of Mexico. Wow.
The stories about it when Hernán Cortés, which was the conqueror, the Spaniard conqueror of Tenochtitlan, the history tells that when he saw Tenochtitlan, he was amazed. This is something that I have never seen in my life, and that's why it was encouraged by him to say we have to conquer the city. It's too important to us. So I think, if I correctly remember, it was one of the largest city back then in the whole Americas, from Mexico all the way to Argentina nowadays.
Whoa.
Yeah. Wow. So it's interesting. It's really interesting to see a little bit of history.
How long has it been since Mexico got its independence from the Spanish?
So the independence, we got the independence in the War of Independence started in 1810, but our independence of knowing like Mexico, because back then we were called New Spain, but New Spain was covered all about Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, I will say 1821. Since 1821, we have been an independent country. And of course, we have been internal wars, civil wars, revolutions. But yeah, I will say like a full democratic country, 1910.
1910. Nice.
Yeah.
That's about 37 years before India, because India got its independence 1947. And this year actually is the 75th year of independence. On August 15th, we'll be 75 years since we got our independence.
Really? That's really interesting. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Brother,
Yeah.
wow. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, because I want to talk a lot and learn a lot about international politics, whatever's going on, etc., etc. Let's start off with the elephant in the room, the Russia situation. In short, what is going on? What is your take on the Russia situation and what's happening?
Okay, so I will try to be quick and sweet, because it's a little bit complicated situation, a little bit complicated subject. Probably our viewers will say, I know pretty much everything about the Russia situation, because every time a question or a topic pops up in social media, everyone is an expert. Yeah. So that's really funny. But pretty much, if we want to understand what's going on with Russia, first of all, we have to understand about the history. So originally the capital of Ukraine, which is Kiev, that was, if we recall a little bit of history, all the Russians, like the pure Russians, were founded, or they founded their city in Kiev. So for the Russian people, Kiev means has a lot of historical meaning. Yeah. So, and that's to start off. And then when we see the Russian Empire with the Tsars, and then we go in a little bit with the revolution with Lenin, and then the socialists. When socialists came into power with Stalin, and then we go with Nikita Khrushchev, etc. Ukraine was always this rebel part of the Soviet Union, and Russia didn't always like that. Like Moscow didn't always like that, but Ukraine was always, I'm part of the Soviet Union, but I manage my own internal politics, and I'm pretty much free. So as we already know, in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. All these large or independent or autonomous states become independent countries, like Ukraine, like Belarus, like Estonia, Latvia, etc., etc. So once in 1991, Ukraine got his independence, it has been always got more an approach of being part of the West European side. It has been always felt that feeling of being Europeans rather than Russians.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. So if we see the case of Belarus, for example, they tend to be more pro-Russian, because they speak a little bit more Russian, actually. And Ukraine, they don't speak Russian, they speak Ukrainian. Yeah, so that has to be really that's a really big difference when it comes with language. So language has been always a big issue, a big important element to analyze this situation. So now we go a little bit forward in history, in 2000, so the 21st century. Ukraine back then in 2005 got the so-called Orange Revolution. The so-called Orange Revolution, pretty much they have an unstable government, Ukraine, but it was a pro-Russian government.
Okay.
So the Ukrainians didn't like that, and they started a revolution. It was a really bloody revolution. They went to the square, to the big, one of the most representative square centers or downtowns in Kiev. They protested. Yeah, exactly, and they withdraw pretty much the government. So that was 2005. A little bit forward in history, a new president came into power, Lukashenko, if I remember correctly. That was the name of the guy. He was another pro-Russian Ukrainian president, and a lot of political analysis has been stating that he was pretty much a puppet from Putin, yeah, the president of Russia. So was in 2008, 2008, between 2008 and 2009, it was the so-called Euromaidan, yeah, Euromaidan. So when Lukashenko came into power, he promised the Ukrainian people that he was going to make a bid to the European Union to be part of the European, so Ukraine become of the European Union.
Part of the European.
At the end, he withdrew that bid because Russia told him not to do that. Just stop doing that. And he would. When the Ukrainians saw that, they went crazy.
They were like, we've been lied to. Yeah.
Yeah, that we were lied to. We will want to become Europeans, but they were denying to us. So the first one who started to protesting were the young people. They went once again to that exact same downtown square, and they started to protesting. But it was a little bit, 1,000, probably less, like 500. 24 hours later, there were 10,000. Then 24 hours later, there were 100,000. So it was just incredible, the amount of people concentrate over there. But then the Lukashenko regime sent some police, and they pretty much kill a lot of people. When Ukrainians saw once again that, they went crazy. They went crazy, and once again there were more people, and they gathered more than 1 million people in the downtown of Kiev. At the end, Lukashenko flew out of the country. He went to Russia. He has been permanently staying over there actually since 2008, 2009. So it has been more than 7 years. Yeah. No, actually, no, more than 12 years. Sorry. Yeah, it has been more than 12 years. So Ukraine got a new government, a little bit more stable, and then we going on. Then we go to 2015. As a lot of people know, something called Crimea, which is a territory in the southeast of Ukraine. It has a large border with Russia.
Correct.
Problem with that is that Russia wanted to have access to the Black Sea, and the only way to do it had to be to conquer Crimea.
Because they need the port, and the port makes, like, sea transportation is the cheapest way of transporting material across the world and for trade.
Exactly. So they wanted to have access over there. What did the government of Russia did? So pretty much they gave arms to the local people over there. But I will make a clear example. A lot of people say that there were a lot of pro-Russians or a lot of Russian with a Russian heritage living in Crimea. Exactly. However, that's not entirely true. The problem is that they make false accusations, or false statements. That's the word. False statements. Let's say, for example, that in a small town they live 100 people, and of that 100 people, only 2 people say that they want to become part of Russia. And then Russia hears that and saying, oh, they want to be part of Russia. Everyone wants to be part of Russia. No, that's not entirely true. Only 2% of the population want to be part of Russia. So that's what happened. They went, usually Russia has a so-called mercenary group that is part of the Russian government. It's not part of the Russian government, but everybody knows that it's part of the Russian government. And they withdraw the local government over there in Crimea, and they annexed Crimea, just out of the blue. In one day, they sent troops, pretty much. What happened? The international community was quiet. They did nothing. Of course, they imposed a little bit of, all of this economic sanctions, political sanctions. That's why, if you remember correctly, in the last 2, not World Cups, rather the Olympics, they cannot use the Russian flag. They have to be called Russian Olympic Committee. That was one part of this. Just a fun fact. That's why when we are seeing the Olympics, we cannot see the Russian flag, rather the Olympic Russian flag, because it represents the Russian Olympic Committee.
Whoa,
Yeah.
because maybe the Olympics banned Russia, and so they have this committee participating, but it's just a show business.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not make a difference.
That was in 2015. The Western community, including the US, Germany, leading the European Union, they did nothing pretty much. Why is that? And now it comes with what's going on. 70%, I will say, yeah, between 60 and 70% of all the natural gas that comes directly to the European Union, where they get it from Russia.
Exactly.
So that's why they did nothing. They were like, okay, no worries. You annexed a territory that were not part of you.
But we need oil and gas, yeah.
We need oil and gas, exactly. Then the pandemic hits. You know, when the pandemic hits, all the prices went down and then started to cover up a little bit. A lot of the economists saying that 2022 were the recovery year, but they didn't count it that Russia had different plans, and they announced an attack to Ukraine, saying that pretty much the same thing. They have Nazis. That's what he's saying. They have Nazis in Ukraine, and they are killing the Ukrainian people. That's why we need to go to Ukraine and kill those Ukrainian Nazis in order to liberate the Ukrainian people. I'm not inventing this. This is what the Russian government has been saying the whole time, these past 4 months.
This is their official statement as to why it is justified to go and annex Ukraine.
Exactly. Yeah. The problem with that is that why start this conversation talking about history? We have to recall a little bit that the Ukraine has always not been a good friend from Russia. They always want to be different from Russia. We are Ukrainians. They're proud to be Ukrainians. That's why Ukraine has not fallen down. That's why we are seeing nowadays that even though they have been sending their military going on, Ukraine still over there. The problem with that, it has been an economic effect all around the world. That's why when you go to the supermarket, and you buy your local tortillas, they're going up. The prices are going up every single month, every single bi-weekly, or every single month, every single week, because prices are going up. Why? This is the interesting thing. The largest producer of corn and grains are in Ukraine. Exactly. Why the prices of the, like electric in general, like gas, oil went up? Because Russia and Ukraine are the largest producers of oil and natural gas in the European Union and all around the world. And because all of this, and because Russia, what the European Union was like, we cannot accept this. We're gonna close all your administration of the gas, and etc. You will not be able to receive our money, so like euros, dollars, exactly. So Russia, what did? Okay, I will close the pipe. You will not have any more gas. You will not have any more oil. So what happened? The price go up. So that's pretty much the quick. I know it wasn't quick, but that was a little bit of the quick and a little bit of the summary of what's going on with the Russian problem. That's why all around the world, I don't think there's any type of country, any single country in the world that has having any type of effects, economic effects from the Russian pretty much war against Ukraine, because nobody wants to say it wasn't a war. No, it is a war. Yeah, it is an attack, a direct attack to Ukraine.
Oh, so man, I think that's one of the best explanations I've heard in such a short time about what the situation is. Thank you for that.
No worries.
it's also crazy to see how actually connected we have become in the 21st century. And it's truly a global world where one situation in the world affects everybody else, literally.
Exactly. Yeah. We are a globalized world. A lot of people do not like that. I'm personally believe that a globalized world has more benefits that negative things. However, these are one of the negative situations that affects all around the world. So we just have to be really, really keen to what's going on in this region, because it started with COVID, and then started with Ukraine and Russia, and now we're speaking about monkeypox. I don't know, whatever, and now a little bit of rise of COVID, and everything now probably in 4 months we'll speaking about the World Cup. So just we have to be really keen on what's going on, because this has been a tendency that will last. A lot of economists and political analysis saying that this rise of prices all around the world, they will have a tendency of going down around the third trimester of 2023. So we still have like a 1 year of economic uncertainty.
Yeah, but also I think the rise of prices, me being an economics student, is also tied with another factor, which is a lot of countries printed a lot of money during COVID. And when you print a lot of money, then inflation has to go up like today or tomorrow. When you print a lot of money, just spread it out without creating actual value of goods and services, you're actually just bumping the price up for things in the future, which like the US printed like billions of dollars and spread it, and so did other countries. And that's another why we're seeing the rise of price, right?
Exactly. That's a point I totally missed, and thank you so much for pointing it out. The Russia situation, and when Biden announced last year, we're going to give $1,000 to every single family, to every single person in the US. That was bad. That was a bad idea. Everybody was like, let's go, give me the money, give me the money. But they didn't realize that this was going to be affecting all around the world. Imagine, I don't know, it's really complicated. They shouldn't have done that. They should have gone more easily. But now a lot of people are saying that a recession is coming up.
Of course it is, because of the way money was printed. And you see, these politicians, for them and for the main masses, it's an eyewash, right? Okay, the government is giving me money, but you don't realize it's just going to come back and bite you later. It's just a matter of time. But in the time, it's an eyewash. Whoa, this person is really nice. Like, they're printing money. And I'm not talking about left, right, center. I'm talking about anybody who prints money is not a good decision. Just like that.
There's no right and left ideas when it comes with economics. It only is economics, and that's it. It's bad decisions or good decisions. So I don't like people saying, oh, that's a populist, that's a leftist idea. No. Wait, it's economy. That's it. That's how it works. Yeah.
Wow. Bro, thank you for that explanation. I just have a 2 cents to add, like from the India perspective, from what I've heard, like our Ministry of External Affairs and their stance, because our foreign minister currently, Mr. Dr. Jaishankar, he was in the European Union and during the Davos conclave that just happened, and he was being really questioned by a lot of the European journalists and Western journalists, like, why is India currently still buying from Russia, the oil? I don't know if you know, India is still currently continuing to buy oil, and we're getting cheaper oil, so India is buying more oil. And so they're like, why isn't India taking a clear stance, and why isn't like opposing Russia? And he had a very interesting response. He said, the Europeans think that their problems are the world's problems, but when the world has problems, when other countries have problems, it's not their problem. And so he said, what I'm buying in a month, Europe buys in an afternoon. And you still have a problem with me getting oil that I am getting at a cheaper rate, of course, because of what's going on in the world. Why wouldn't I criticize the attack and the war, but at the same time, I have to also keep my interest in mind, because, when we have problems, Europe turns an eye, like maybe what's going on during the Kashmir region in India and Pakistan, like, since so many years, but nobody cares so much. But now when Europe has a problem, it's not like, we have to jump in and we have to be all alert, right? It's kind of a one-sided victory story. And I thought that response was very interesting because India has always been a very back foot and very like, shut up, be safe in front of the Westerners and like not take your own stance kind of a country historically. And this is the first time I see such a bold statement by the Ministry of External Affairs of India. So like, what's your take on that?
That's really, I have two takes from that. And that's really, really interesting. The first one is the one you're saying that when Europe has problems or when the US has problems, like the Western countries have problems, they think that all around the world has the same problems. In a sense, they're pretty much right, because we have to understand that they are pretty much the global leaders. The US still is one of the largest economies in the world. Not probably next year or in a couple 5 years, 4 years, there will be the second one, because China is just moving so fast. That's a reality. If people don't like that, just shut down your computer and that's it. That's a reality. China is going to be the first economy in the world in 4 years or less. However, when we see in these scenarios of all these refugees from Ukraine, you saw the intake from all the Europeans. They were like, please come, you are welcome to us. But what happened with Syria? What happened to Afghanistan? They were like, more refugees. See how it works? Even though in migration, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So what the Prime Minister of India said is pretty much, it's pretty much true. And the second one, India is a really fascinating country, not because of the history they have, which is really complicated to understand the history, and of course of their society and going on. It's one of the largest population. It has one of the largest population, 1 billion, right? 1.2 billion or something.
Like 1.3, 1.4 now. Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
You don't have a count, man.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But there's a theory in international relations of the two clash power. So back in the 19th century, a little bit starting the 20th century, when the UK was the largest, was the biggest power, but then Germany came, and they was like, "Hey, I want to fight you. Let's fight." So it's just like a local fight bar. I usually use this example. So one of the musculous guys, they say, "Hey, I'm more musculous." No, I'm more musculous, and they starting to beat up each other. But there's this small guy in front of them and just analyzing this scenario.
Yeah.
Once the guys are pretty much beat up, they didn't kill each other, they beat up.
Yeah.
So the little guy rises up and he just punched them and he wins. That's what happened with the US.
Yeah.
The Germany and the UK, they started to fight each other. The UK at the end they won, and at the end of the First World War they won. Germany was a little bit hurt. And once again, Germany say, I want to have full control. They fight against each other. Both countries were totally destroyed because of the war, and the US came into power, and it became the superpower.
Correct.
Nowadays, the US and China. The US and China trying to fight each other. Who has the economic factor, the society factor, like the human capital,
and political
political too, the land distribution, enough land to overcome to be the next superpower? People will say Germany. No, Germany has an old population, really small country. Geographically, not really. It's not really good, the demographics. Russia is a too large territory, which half of them is pretty much ice. Small population, really tricky economy, like a weak economy pretty much. Some people say Some African countries like Nigeria, some other people say France, some people say Australia or Japan, pretty much the same. The answer is India. It has population, it has territory, it has economy, it has technology, and the most important, they are located in the most important region in the world, which is Asia Pacific. All the logistics, all transportation has to come through that strain. They're close from all the specific countries, are really important countries. They're close from that strain in Singapore. They are really good located. So I think, to be honest, that in probably 20 or 30 years, India will become the superpower of the world. So it's really interesting. Probably not, but that's something to think about it.
Wow, that's very interesting. I've actually heard about this theory too, and it's interesting you pointed out. Yeah, another thing with India is that it has a lot of young population. So we have like about our population on average is 35 years old on average, and we're a country of 1.34 billion people. So imagine the number of people who are so young and with a lot of energy. And if you come to even India now, man, the energy and the entrepreneurship in every city, the way it is, like everywhere there's a new business, new technology, this or that. I'm fascinated myself. I had the option to stay in the US after my graduation, but something pulled me back. The kind of energy and the oozing and the bursting of what's happening in India is phenomenal. Of course, right now we're not at the level of the US or China, for sure. But in many ways, we're taking a lot of jumps and leaps. Another interesting thing about India I've noticed is in the past like 5-10 years, there's a lot of international alliances and rebuilding of connections. So if you see our prime minister, he visited many countries, and some people say it's good or bad, etc. I don't know. Long story short, India is now very much more well connected internationally. So you see, like, it has good relations with Russia relatively. We're buying the oil, a lot of our militaries train together, etc. It has good relations with Israel. Also, it has reestablished relations with the US since Obama, and then with Trump, with the visits. Kind of the only two countries that India is not so well established with, I would say, in the world is China, of course, and we share borders, so that's a problem, and Pakistan, which Pakistan is not doing too well right now. And it had a lot of backing from China, but what I hear from now is because of their bad policies and decisions, like even China has like withheld investment, etc. So far, like, well positioned, right? We have good relations with Japan, and of course, anybody who's not in favor of China would also be more with India, since that a little bit of a cold war is there between India and China.
Exactly. I mean, that's why India has a lot of relevance in the Asia Pacific region. Of course, I can talk about theories of international relations, how to approach the Asia Pacific region. But in general, India is a key player. It's a really important player. And that's why the US, like Western countries, including Japan, Canada, that wants to be a little bit part of it, the US, of course, Korea, so on. They want to be part, and ASEAN, for example, ASEAN that comprise all of these countries. Yeah, exactly. They want always to be part of they saying like, hey, India, come be my friend, because I know you are not a good friend with China, because you are pretty much the same. That's a good thing. Why? Because India shares democratic values.
Yep.
It's the largest democracy in the whole world. Yeah, that's a really important point. And China is not. So that's why to the US and to the whole world, it is more convenience to have a superpower governed by pretty much India rather than China.
Correct.
First of all, because of that. I know that India has different approaches when it comes with culture, but they are more a westernized culture than China, and more democratic ideas than China. Of course, like every single country has problems. Every single country has problems. But as you said, they are making leap forwards really, really fast, India. So I think that, and nobody is talking about it. that's something really like why we are not talking about India.
That's
It's
maybe
always
good
in
for India, right? Not too much in the eyes, and then you become a big giant. Yeah.
exactly. So we have to put really, really attention what's going on, what will happen in 10 years.
Yeah.
India is one of the largest producers of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yeah.
A lot of the vaccine that we receive, for example, here in Mexico, were produced in India. Because once again, you have the capital. As you pretty much know, you're one of the largest producers of gasoline. We here in Mexico, we import 40% of our gasoline from India.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So,
Well, I'm glad we're the manufacturer of vaccine and not the disease.
yeah, exactly. I mean, but it's once again, really important to analyze how will play this role of intermediate relationship between the US and China, India at the end.
Man, this is awesome. What a good talk. And sometimes I think people living in India, some of them get so pessimistic. They're like, look at, that country, they're doing so well. We are shit and this and that. But I think internationally, everybody's eyes on India. Everybody's optimistic about India.
Exactly. Everybody's optimistic about India, specifically. I will say the US. I mean, in general, like the Western Hemisphere, like the Americas, they're making that approach. I cannot speak about Mexico because I mean we are neighbors. We share one of the largest borders with the first economy in the world. So that's why all of our export and imports goes 80% to the US. So and that's the bad situation or approach at the end. We have to make diversified our trade agreements, and specifically with India. I cannot imagine the potential that we will have if we had a trade agreement with India. In this case, with Mexico, a lot of Indian companies are based, for example, in Guadalajara. There's a large population of Indians living in Guadalajara. Yeah, like I do not recall the name of this company. It's I will remember, but it's a large population of Indians, in Guadalajara. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Interesting. So, bro,
connections.
Talking about international relations, the Russia situation, Europe, and then India, Indo-Pacific, China, US, everything. I want to get a little bit, more into politics. I was having a conversation with you, and you were talking about something called populism. And maybe this will be the last leg of our conversation today because this is such a deep topic. But what is the populism? What is it? What movement is it? And what's happening with that? Like, what do you have to say about that? What is populism? What's happening?
What is populism? Populism is something has been going on even since, I will say that at the end of the 20th century. What is that? It's a wave. I will say it's like a wave, a political wave that has included several political leaders that portray themselves as part of the people. They always say that, part of the people. So what is populism? The popus from the Greek, like the people in general.
People, yeah.
Exactly. They put, as I mentioned before, are political leaders. They're figures. They don't have to be exactly like political. They can be economically. They have to be like known figures, known figures in the country, and they portray themselves as outside the establishment. What the establishment means? Well, they are not, for example, if we are speaking about the US, they are not the like the local or like normal politician that is part of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party.
That's like Donald Trump, outside the establishment.
Exactly.
Outside. The normal.
Donald Trump is a good example of a populist leader. He portrays himself. He's a rich man. He's really good known. He's a rich man. When he makes his statements, he doesn't care about anybody. He doesn't care about it. That's why he say that Mexicans were rapists. That's why he say that, sorry for my language, the third shitty world countries that they were banned at the beginning of his administration. The 7 countries that were able, or the nationals that were able to get to the US because they were considered for Trump shitty countries. They don't care about international politics. They don't care about it. That's why the US had a backlash. They pretty much they stop on leading the international scenario. Why is that? Because they don't care about it. They say that the most important thing are domestic politics. Their domestic politics are their international politics, which is totally wrong. So that's the first scenario. They are portray themselves as outsider of the establishment. When they came into power, they say that they will always respect the people because they are part of the people, and they have to like throw back, like they have to throw all those rich people that are part of the establishment. That's why the country cannot go forward. And that's happened with Trump, that happened with Bolsonaro in Brazil, that happened with Kirchner, there were politicians of Argentina back in 2000. That happened with Chavez in Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, and now in Mexico with López Obrador. Yeah, Andrés Manuel López Obrador is the president that we have, and he's a populist president. Every time that somebody comes and saying that's wrong, he's saying fake news. Every single populist president say that's fake news. No, I have other data. No, you're bad media. Doesn't ring a bell? Trump, yeah, saying no, fake news. No, they always saying that the conservatives, the establishment, they want to withdraw them of power because he's an outsider.
So here's my question. So the populists, are they tended to be more right wing, left wing, or there's no such thing? You can be populist regardless of the political orientation you have.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if you're right wing or left wing. Usually, it's really interesting because in the Americas, from Mexico to Argentina, usually populist presidents are from the left wing. On the other side, if we see populist leaders in Europe and the US, they tend to be right wing.
So the US and Europe is more right wing, and other than that, the Americas it's more left wing.
Exactly. So let's say there's a lot of examples of it. I speak about it. I speak it from the Americas perspective. But let's say about Europe, for example. Boris Johnson is a populist. Is a populist leader.
Unkempt hair, does not care too much. Kind of that anti-establishment look that I'm not part of the normal crowd.
Even though he's part about it, but they have a speech. They have something that attracts people. They're saying, hey, that's true. He's not part of the establishment. He has to be part of the establishment in order to do something. But that's not entirely true. There have been always be part of the establishment. So Boris Johnson in the UK, that's why he withdraw from the European Union. They take out from the European Union. That's a
domestic politics.
Domestic politics, saying the European Union has always ripped off the UK, but us, the UK, we have to be alone. Yeah. Domestic politics.
Polish back, exactly. We need to send the Polish back and the people from Poland. Yeah.
Another one is in France with the Front National. It's a right-wing party. Its main figure, like political figure, is sorry, I forgot totally her name. Is a woman. Is a really known woman. Marine Le Pen. That's her name. Marine Le Pen is the leader of the Front National, and it's a right wing. It's a right wing party. In Germany, Alternative für Deutschland, which is translated to Alternative for Germany, a right wing, little bit Nazi party, saying no foreigners, no European Union, no this, no this, no that. Only Germans, really Germans. So in Italy, five star. That's the name of the party, 5 star in Italy, and I can go more examples.
Yeah.
Rafael in Poland, etc.
Very interesting.
So yeah, I mean that's a little bit of the populism that is rising every single year. As we saw it last weekend in Colombia, the first leftist president in their history came into power. He won the elections, and he portrays a little bit of a populist, a populist leader. But I mean, we have to see, we have to wait. But so far, that's the tendency.
Wow, that's a very interesting trend. It's not matter left or right. Right, people understood that there's a certain way to win power, maybe, and to show an image. I mean, a lot of politics and winning election is about showing a certain image and marketing yourself, right? And maybe this is the formula that's working. So everybody's like, okay, let's copy paste this formula. Why not?
Exactly. I mean, it has to be really interesting. I will probably say that they usually are really bad governments. that's another tendency. They are really well portrayed for the people. They're really popular in general, but when it comes to govern, like govern a country, it doesn't have a good idea, a good portray. Yeah, so we can see it with the UK, we can see it with Americas, we can see it with the US, of course. And they something I forgot. They do not respect democratic values. They do not respect democratic values, and that we saw clearly. We saw that with the US, with the assault on the Capitol. So there's a lot of things. I will probably say also that Narendra Modi is a populist leader. A lot of people in India will say
that's very interesting that you say that.
And a lot of people in India will say, no, he's not.
Yeah.
Why? Because I will say a tea seller. He comes from the people. He's a tea seller. He was a tea seller, and now he's the prime minister.
Yeah, true.
No,
it is a story for sure. Like, where he's risen from the masses, and he definitely he's never married. He doesn't have a family. So there's the story for sure that. And some people agree, some people don't, but that he has nothing to do corruption for, because he doesn't have a family. He just has one old mother who he doesn't stay with. So like he's just dedicated his life for the country. Yeah. So he's dedicated his life for the country, and definitely that is a narrative that you hear, that he is kind of different than other politicians because of those factors also. Having said that, it's interesting though, maybe everything does not clearly check, or there can be debate about it. I think he is somebody who has not outspokenly been vocal about only domestic. I think he's somebody who has gone out and tried to build international relations and his ministry. So maybe that's something that's a little different here.
I mean, every single leader has their differing opinions, have their differing approaches. In the case of India, it's a more complicated subject to like finalize saying, oh, he's a populist, he's not a populist. It's really complicated. Why? Because Indian politics are really complicated to understand.
Yeah.
Because once again, the largest democracy in the world. So I think that's pretty much it. I mean, if it is the largest democracy in the world, it is complicated to understand politics.
And the thing is, what's more complicated is not one thing is it's largest. The second thing is it's so diverse within. It's like, the European Union, it's like we have that in India, and even more complex, because there's more than 1,000 languages, more than 5,000 dialects spoken in the same country. If you drive 50 kilometers, people will lick different, people will eat different, people will speak different, people will dress different. 50 kilometers, you know what I mean? Like north to south, it's almost like two different, worlds. The languages are different. Like, if in general, if you're from North India, you may speak Hindi most commonly. If you're from South India, there's 4 different languages in 4 different states. And to communicate with each other, you need English, which is a foreign language technically, because we can't understand each other in those languages, right? And it is very complicated. Different states have different cultures, and within the states there's subcultures, and It's crazy. Indian politics, if somebody can master Indian politics, they got to be a genius.
Yeah.
They got to be a
Yeah,
genius.
it has to be.
So, yeah, interesting that you say one thing about populism. Is there a negative connotation to the word populist? Is it good to be populist or is it not? Because what if somebody is a great leader and is a populist? They come from the masses and they have that story, but if they're a great leader.
That's something really debatable, because so far what we have been seeing from populist leaders, that usually they are not great leaders. So far there's not an exception to the rule. I'm not saying that they have to be bad leaders. So far there's no an exception of it.
I see.
Exactly. So the problem is that because they are pretty much saying outsiders of the establishment, they do not know about economic issues and international affairs issues or domestic issues, which is the most important thing to run a country, or social issues. So we can pretty much say that they do not know. They are not stupid, rather that incapable of doing some, in general, some matters, or some country matters.
Right.
So, like I'm saying, it's not a rule about it. Like saying you have to be a bad government, or it's a bad connotation of being called a populist. Because a lot of people say, yeah, Obama was a populist. I don't know about that. Still, it's a little complicated. Why? Because he was an African American? Doesn't make any sense. I mean, it doesn't matter, because if you are from a different skin color, or you speak a different language, or your background is from another country or whatever. No, I mean, it has to be a little bit more deeper, the conversation. But as I mentioned before, it has not been. The case of India will probably be saying that probably Narendra Modi has been doing a lot of progress, going on. So can be an assumption. I do not know. We have to study more.
But there's debate, right, within India about whether the governance is good or bad, and whether it is in the right track. A lot of people will say, no, not at all. The governance is not good. And others would say, no, it's good. And some people like me, I would take it policy by policy, like, this was a good move and this wasn't. So it depends.
Exactly. At the end, we all are humans, and all governments, they have bad moves and good moves.
Nice. Brother, one last thing that I want to talk about, and like leave the viewers and the listeners with different thought processes. In general, we always hear about democracy being really good, etc., etc. This is the way, and I'm a big believer in democracy. But I remember this line from a professor in college, and she was an economics professor. She once said, sometimes what a country needs is not a democracy, but a benevolent dictatorship. Let me repeat that. Sometimes what a country needs is not democracy. Democracy is a great way, maybe the best way that we discovered so far, but it might not always be the best fit. And this is a very kind of unnerving thing to hear. What you're saying, democracy is not good? Maybe not for everywhere. I mean, and I recently went to Dubai like a few months ago. And when I go to that place, that city, I'm like, a desert has been converted to this place where internationally everybody wants to move in and earn money. And the buildings and the kind of human marvel and engineering they've done is crazy. It's crazy. For some people, yes, it's a very artificial city. You wouldn't want to live there. But to visit, it's nuts. 40 years, literally sand has been converted to a crazy global 21st century tech engineering haven. And they had a dictatorship, right? The UAE is a dictatorship, and so is the Emirate in which Dubai is, done by Sheikh Mohammed. And if you look at him, he's done crazy, and people are happy with him. Most people are very happy with him and what he's brought forward. And maybe a democracy, such a rapid transformation and growth would not be possible. So that's an interesting thing to leave the viewers with. What is your comment on that?
It's really, really interesting. If I lose connection, sorry, probably my internet is unstable. But and I'm more happy to repeat again what I said. In Mexico, there's if you study the Mexican history, there was a dictator called Porfirio Diaz. Porfirio Diaz, he was a general back in the 19th century.
Okay.
And when he came into power, he saw a lot of opportunity. And he said, I want to create Mexico the next Europe, the next France. And he almost did it, to be honest.
Wow.
A lot of architecture, if you come to Mexico City, a lot of the architecture are French influenced, a French base.
Wow.
Sorry. Hello?
Yeah. Your video is frozen, but we can hear you. So a lot of the architecture was French based.
Yeah, they were French based, and I think, and he made a lot of progress to the country. A lot of progress. I'm saying that Mexico grew up more than 100 years in a lab base in a time frame from 30 years. So he made a lot of progress. However, he was a dictator. A lot of democracy values, a lot of oppression to the people, and that's why that led to the Mexican Revolution in 1910. So I think, and I can recall, like a saying, or there's a little bit saying I don't know if you saw that movie called The Dark Knight from Christopher Nolan.
I think
they say if you live if you live enough, then you will become a dictator or you will be called a dictator, or you die and you will be remembered as a hero. So I think that's happened. I mean, it's really complicated. We can see a lot of examples, and one of them are Mexico, that they have a good leader, but it was a benevolent dictator in the sense. It made a lot of progress in terms of economics, but he was an oppressor. He was a dictator. So that's like the other side of the coin. But as you mentioned before, probably democracy is the only best way that we have discovered, because we do not know another one. That's the reality. Is that probably the less of the baddest probably, I will say that. So but we have other examples, like Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. All the disaster that we are seeing in Venezuela is because of Hugo Chavez and
Hitler was elected with democracy.
Hitler was Hitler was elected by democracy. Give me a break. And he became one of the largest hated people in the whole world, in the whole history of the world, and so on. For example, another one, Mao Zedong in China. All these, the Great Leap. He pretty much established the foundations of what it comes now China.
So true.
But he killed a lot of people. He was a dictator.
Yep.
Otherwise, if he wasn't dead or if he didn't die, he'd probably have continued to until I don't know when.
Yeah.
But that's the reality. I mean, sometimes you have to be a little bit strong in order to have results. I'm not the one from that idea. I do one of the truest believers of democracy. Of course, I hate dictatorships, but yeah, it's really debatable once again. Yeah. In the 21st century, I think that it's more complicated to have a dictatorship because of the interconnectedness that we have nowadays.
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. Like that was just a point to stir the mind up. We're like, yeah, okay, that's interesting. But for sure, I'm also a big believer in democracy and free markets and economy. Yeah. Brother, it's been a great conversation with you. Thank you for teaching me so much. Thank you for teaching our viewers so much, all your insight and expertise. It's been a great chat all the way from Mexico to India. I hope to host you soon here in a few months when you come to India next year. And then I'll show you this beautiful democracy. Cheers. Good job, man.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Goodbye, Naren.
Goodbye, brother.